Perfect. Hey, Jim, and the whole cloud team at Saber and Google. Thank you for the opportunity again. This is sort of a fun topic. I'll give you a little bit of background. So again, my name is Mihir Mistry, based in the DFW Metroplex, Las Colinas area. Been in cybersecurity for a good 20 years now. I have ran a lot of consulting gigs in the past. Started my career doing assessments in cybersecurity against frameworks such as HIPAA, NIST, ISO, PCI, so on. Eventually got a good handle of how cybersecurity programs are grown over time. It's always a journey. Now I've learned a lot that, hey, if anyone's looking for a quick turnkey solution, there's nothing like that. So it's always both cybersecurity and privacy. If you're going to tackle that, have a mindset of a journey approach. You've heard the words crawl, walk, run, because there's so much going on, right? And again, I'll share some light on privacy as well. Again, I've done enough to understand the high level risks. Hey, as we develop a business plan that ventures into new technology, what are the things we need to consider? So I'll try to bring some of that on the presentation today. Keep this interactive in the sense, if you have any thoughts or questions, I'm going to rely on Jim to again, feel free to not wait towards the end of the presentation, Jim. If the question or if there's a good input on a slide or two, definitely call it out. So jumping right into this, again, as Jim approached me like, hey, looking for speakers, there's so many topics, everything from ransomware to security operations, privacy rules, and so on. Last couple of years there was an event. So my first introduction to the VR augmented reality world was presenting a conference called Medical XR. So these are a bunch of doctors out of Germany that started using augmented reality in support for patients who lack certain elements, right? So like vision, hearing aid impairments, and so on. So they started bringing the AR element, the VR element to the patient care, and things have really evolved from there. I mean, we all saw that Facebook has renamed itself to Meta as well, and again, to have that market presence in the whole metaverse as it evolves. So I'll try to throw some light into that. It was a lot of fun doing some research as I was presenting or preparing to present here, because again, there were some things where I was like, oh wait, I used to do that. Is that called virtual reality? Is that called augmented reality? Even things like, if you think about playing Wii, right? When Nintendo Wii came out, and I'm going to date myself here, back in 2007, you had something in your hand. So there was a sensory device that you were holding, very different from a joystick, because joystick, you have movements, but it's very, north, south, east, west, right? Here, it added a lot more components to that movement. So even that sort of was first, at least my introduction to augmented reality, saying, hey, look, if I'm playing the golf game on Wii, right, then I have to stand out a swing, and that swing action actually is replicated on the TV, and wow, you're like, wow, this is completely different. Yes, there were other risks back in the days where now your wrist is hurting because those muscles were never used in the past, and so on. But anyway, then I will, again, I want to keep this pretty basic, because again, to me, the way I see cybersecurity and privacy is, yes, there's so many layers to that, but at the end of the day, it's a people, process, and technology issue, right? I always love to see, no matter how complex the day gets or a situation gets, you always break down cybersecurity into identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, right? So those are the five families of a NIST cybersecurity framework. And if you start looking at any cybersecurity program in those lens, it really simplifies your world. Privacy is evolving. I mean, that's the most fascinating area that's going to grow in the next 5 to 8 years for sure, if not more. Digital currency, data currency, like your data is now valuable, right? If you did not know that from search engine optimization and stuff like that, now you probably know. And then we'll talk about some fun opportunities and risk. And that's my presentation. No, I'm just kidding. I hate this is not. I cannot hear you guys laughing, but hopefully that was a good thing. All right. Some basic stuff. Again, this was a lot of fun, like researching. Virtual reality. Yeah. If you ask my kids, they are like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" I mean, that's by default. You take things for granted, right? But again, even with me, there was a transition period where I was introduced to it. I was not really sure how this is going to work, and then I saw a use case where I'm like, "Wow, this is great." And then I'm like, "Wait, I can actually commercially use it for a lot of different purpose, right?" So in my research, actually, in 1838, virtual reality was first introduced by Charles Wheatstone. So he had done a research where if you combine two images, left eye, right eye, you actually get a third dimension. So there was a stereoscope that was later, I think, patented somewhere around 1939, 1940, called the Viewmaster, right? So it's again, back in the old days, you hold it against your eye and you hit the clicker and it changes the images, and it gives you that depth element of what you did not see before, right? So that whole concept from ground up was pretty phenomenal. Now, if you fast forward, right, to 2022, I was just again doing a lot of research. Yes, you got the Google glasses, and just look at something that Microsoft is also investing into called HoloLens, right? Again, the scalability of the technology, that you can use it in manufacturing, you can use it in healthcare, you can use it, defense, retail, transportation, and so on. There's so many avenues where this technology is applicable, right? And what that does is, I think the rate acceptance of your audience is also then a great multiplier, right? So the more industries, the more market space, the more consumers that you're going to get introduce this technology to. Some of the benefits of virtual reality: revolutionize the try before you buy concept. I'll give you a great example on this one. So I was trying to redo my patio. It did not have tiles, before this summer. So I wanted to get some tile work done, and choosing the color of the tile and the style of the tile is always a very heated topic at home, right? You're like, "Hey, I like light gray," and then somebody says, "No, I want dark gray, and I want lines. I don't want lines." But anyway, I was just going to Home Depot, so I'm like, "Okay, let me at least check what is the rate of the tiles," right? Home Depot had a phenomenal feature. Again, I was like, I should have known that, right? But I still got surprised, pleasantly surprised. So you can take, while you're shopping for the tile, you can take a picture through your phone, and it will replicate the floor with the tile you have chosen, right? And you get a kind of real world view of, hey, how is that one slab, one piece of tile versus the whole patio? How is that going to look like, right? So I definitely bought into the try before you buy concept. Now you see that being played at, in the retail front, manufacturing, healthcare, again, the whole training piece of that, right? As you have new doctors, you have new nurses, joining the staff, that whole virtual, and soon I'll talk about mixed reality as well. Concept definitely helps. Introduce established products to new audiences, and then again, prototyping and designing. Again, if you think of, Iron Man movie when it first came out. It was so cool. Or what was the Tom Cruise movie of Minority Report, right? Where he's moving news article from one screen to the other, he's throwing stuff up. Now you can actually do that by wearing the Oculus glasses and say, hey, you know what? If this is the project map that I'm building, is this timeline going to work? Okay, trash that, right? Grab it and put it in trash can, and it's gone, right? Take a template, put it up on the screen, and boom, you have a new template. And it just adds that another layer of efficiency and productivity. Jim, do we have any questions so far?
Looking in the chat and the Q&A chat, no questions yet.
Awesome.
So if you have something, even if you have a crazy thought in mind, something you don't understand, yeah, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll read it out loud for Mihir, and he can answer it the best that he can.
Thank you. Yeah. Keep in mind, I'm not the SME here. I'm just trying to relay a good topic here. I love, so from virtual reality, augmented reality. Again, this is where it takes it to a different level, right? So you have the virtual reality, but augmented reality gives you that immersive experience that VR could not, right? Like you feel you're part of the game. So simple things like Google Maps, when they came out, you can actually walk the street and you can map out saying, hey, how is my drive going to look, not just on a 2D map, but a three-dimensional map, right? And it will show you what the drive now looks like in traffic at 4 o'clock in the evening, at 6 o'clock in the morning, stuff like that. So you can actually plan your day to the point, right? Again, it was, back in the day, somebody had definitely thought about it. There was something called Sensorama that came out in 1957. So they made the user sit there, with hands and feet, and then you had that sensory vibrations, right, as the images on the screen also took place. Augmented reality is now, again, as I said, if you look at the Gen Z generation, right, a lot of things they take it for granted. Google came out with Google AR animals. I don't know if anyone's played around with it, but there are about 10 to 15 animals where you can take a picture of your room, live in motion, and then you can throw out the animal in the room. So you can have a dog, you can have a tiger, you can have a snake. I think there are a few birds and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, kids can have fun around, but think of the possibilities you can do with that. Again, I'm buying a vase, right? Or I'm buying an entry table. I don't know how that's going to look before I go, to the store, IKEA, go purchase it, bring it, and then what if it does not gel with, the environment of the room, the decor of the room. Through this, I can actually, I don't know if IKEA has this feature, but now, we'll talk ideas. A picture and IKEA will show how that entry table will look like. And oh, by the way, you probably need a vase, right? And which goes with orchid. So now there's an opportunity to upsell. What excites me is also this concept of immersive experience. I don't know who in the audience has gone to. There were a couple of them. Vengo was one. I'm trying to remember if there was any other artist, but I recently saw King Tut, and it's not in Dallas, but if it comes in Dallas, that's the one I want to go. Just imagine walking in a room where you're back, in the early 1900s or 1800s, where they were building the pyramids. You actually see the tomb. You actually see, all the decor, the walls, and all that. I think it will be phenomenal to have that experience, and it just takes your knowledge to a different level, right? You actually get a sense of how big or small these objects are, right now we read a lot of this stuff. Yeah, we see YouTube videos and stuff like that, so it does give us some sense, but being there in that space is a whole different experience, right? And I think as it grows, it will get better and better, and people will buy into that concept, right? They're going to say, hey, this is awesome. Like, if I'm thinking of traveling to Bahamas, right, or December, then I do, before I buy the ticket, what if I can experience what Bahamas is going to feel like, right? You wear the Oculus glasses, and boom, you're on the beach of the Bahamas. You actually get the soothing waves, and then you get the breeze, and that may entice you to buy the ticket right now versus later. So I think augmented reality is definitely taking it to the next level. Um, Income's metaverse. This is again just blowing my mind. At least again, I feel like a kid in the playground. Uh, it's a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer generated environment and other users. I just read that off the slides, but it's important, right? Because so let's talk about some of the screenshots here. What do you see on the right hand side is actually my avatar. So this is the conference I was talking about. The first 2 years they did it all virtual on a Meta platform, where you are introduced an avatar. You can walk from different conference rooms to the main hall, where you have the keynote speaker. You're sitting on a panel. So one, I was in a dedicated room where I had my talk track, and I was going to talk about, again, where was cybersecurity back in 2020 and how it's evolving. So people who had signed up for that session would come and attend that session in person. Sorry, or virtual reality in that room, right? So it was almost like I was walking as I'm talking. I'm moving. My hand gestures are moving, stuff like that. It was great experience. The one next to it, I'm waiting on the couch as the keynote speaker is talking. So there was a panel discussion. I was going to stand up and give my 15 minutes of talk on the keynote as well. So again, and you can see the audiences are sitting, right. So if you are one of the people who had registered for the conference, you get a seat at the table. And then the other piece was, you could actually, there were rooms where if you have a medical product displayed for showcase, you can actually go to that room and you can actually try and see what the product would do, right? So things like, hey, virtual therapy sessions, right? So the CEO was there. She would talk to you, like, and she would simulate an environment where you get first-hand experience of what it would look like speaking to a therapist in the mountains of Himalayas, right? Or somewhere in Tibet, or somewhere in Bahamas, or something near. Pick your location, whatever makes you have that peace and nice environment, or Zen. I was looking at the keynote from a speech from Satya from Microsoft as well. Microsoft, Facebook, Google, they all are heavily investing in the metaverse. I mean, think of we all are doing virtual meetings, for the last 2 years, but taking virtual meetings to the next level, where you're not just doing video calls, but you actually have an avatar who gets to whiteboard stuff, who gets to present. You get to choose your own clothing, stuff like that. A lot of benefits out there for metaverse as well. It's a great consumer market space. Again, B2C, right? Uh, my kids play Roblox, and at first I was like, okay, um, Fortnite as well. But when I last heard, I think it was a year or 2 years ago, there where my son was like, "Hey, Post Malone is going to be, having a concert. Can I go buy a ticket?" I'm like, "Wait, where? On Fortnite? What does that even mean, right?" So it was pretty fascinating, where Post Malone was having a concert on Fortnite, but it's all a virtual experience, right? And then, of course, during the concert, they were selling merchandise, right, where you could buy it for your virtual avatar, or I'm sure you can also buy it saying, "Hey, I like the hoodie that he's wearing. I want to wear it. I want to ship it." Right. So think of that one event giving you that end-to-end wholesome experience of enjoying the music, being immersive during the event, making a transaction, and just completing the whole experience. On the commercial side, and I'll pause after this, on the commercial side, again, everything from, say, if your team is designing a new prototype, right? I'm sure, like, back in the days when I had a trip to the GM plant on how they manufacture cars, and you saw the whole assembly line and all that, and that wowed you, right? I'm sure companies like, especially the EV companies like Tesla, all of them are doing somewhat, all this in a virtual environment as well, where they're saying, hey, let's try prototype of this car design, right? So let's build it in a virtual world. Let's see how it evolves. Let's increase the wind speed, or the speed of the car. Let's see how it goes on a highway, and add some elements to that that are sort of replicate the real world. And then last but not the least, again, industrial. As I was reading papers and research articles, reduce carbon footprint, right? So ESG is a big initiative. As you see, companies are now talking about ESG, just like they were talking about cybersecurity and privacy. Uh, if you can have that same conference experience, I'm not saying take away the entire conference, because I do like meeting people in person, um, but give that option of saying, hey, instead of going to two mega conferences, let's do one in person and supplement the other one in virtual, but try to give them the same experience, right? So your registration now comes with Oculus glasses and stuff like that, where you're sitting in a conference but you're enjoying the whatever the concept, the keynote speaker, the environment of, if the conference was in Vegas, right? Then you have the Metaverse is basically on the Vegas Strip, and you have all the hotels, and so you sort of feel involved, right? So again, pretty fascinating where the whole AR, VR, and Metaverse has evolved.
No, that's great. At a breathing point, there's a couple of things in the chat. One's just Tony Novak is reminiscing on Metaverse being big during the COVID for tech conferences. It's kind of the only way to get people together is virtually. And then a couple questions. One from Ron Netherland. So in his, where he's at, Ron's at Dell. They're seeing that hackers are starting to use AI, AR for kind of deep fake attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Have
Yeah.
you looked into deep fakes at all as part of your research, and how do you see deep fakes with AI, AR kind of evolving?
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about deepfake. I mean, that's a real threat. It's really hard to draw the line on what is real and what is not. So the authenticity of the content,
Hmm.
again, it kind of goes back to self governance. There was an article I was reading, like physical space still has a lot more boundaries defined, right? Like, hey, you cannot just go and uh, do something bad. There are laws and everything. The software space is still evolving in that sense, and that's why you have the whole evolution of GRC in order to contain some of that. But I'll definitely talk about that, so we can have that discussion.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Just
this is
and
Yeah. Go
one.
ahead, Jim.
Yeah, just on the deep fakes. If anybody sees a deep fake of me out there without red shoes on, it's probably a fake. If it has red shoes, it's either really accurate or actually me.
Yeah, no, that I've questioned that before, Jim, when I saw you without red shoes. I was like, is that Jim? Maybe not. But anyway, this again kind of, you've seen versions of this. Like if you go and put cybersecurity vendor eye chart, it's an eye chart, right? There's so many, like for SIM, there are hundreds of vendors. For GRC platform, hundreds of vendors. Antivirus, hundreds of vendors. Look at Metaverse, right? Half of us are probably not even playing in this game, but I felt left out when I saw this. Everyone from infrastructure to human interface, decentralizing the platform, the discovery element of it, and the whole experience of it, right? again, this is just going to evolve. I saw Netflix on it. I'm like, hey, how is Netflix different than what I see? So it kind of is the same, but at the same time, Netflix Netflix wants to have a foot in the door. So they actually have a partnership with a lot of metaverse platforms where you can do you can have viewing events. So for example, if Stranger Things when Stranger Things 4 came out, you could actually meet with a group of friends in a very nice luxury home, somewhere in LA or Malibu, and you can have a couch, with a nice fireplace, and your avatars are all sitting around eating popcorns, and you can actually watch the same show. Which is, I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. I saw Amazon doing some of that, where you could have a block party. So you could invite some of the other Amazon users, and everyone starts watching the same time. But again, this one sort of took it to a different level. Um, Minecraft, again, that game has evolved. Fortnite, Meta, some of that, and then you see Google, Apple, from an infrastructure point, just again, everyone is going to start thinking about, hey, how do we support the bandwidth? How do we support the data? How do we support? And then comes the cybersecurity and the privacy element. Um, so who else is in metaverse, right? This was also pretty interesting. Samsung is there. You can actually go to a Samsung store. You can look at the products. I think it's a great opportunity for Samsung, just like how car manufacturers have a concept model. Like Acura has one that you'll probably never see on the road, but that's the exciting part for people who are pretty enthusiastic about cars, right? Like, hey, what's a futuristic Acura or Mercedes or BMW going to look like? And now you actually see EV models replicating some of that. In the metaverse, I think it's a great opportunity, where you could say, hey, you know what about this, right? Samsung came out with a flip phone. What if they come out with a circular device, right? I think this would be a great opportunity where they could say, hey, go play around with it. It's on the metaverse. It's going to cost you X cryptocurrency. I think people will definitely buy into that. Wendy, this was great. Like Wendyverse is actually very developed and very mature. You can go and play to gain, like you can play different games. It will give you tokens or credits. Then you can go to, like, get your, it's not a Wendy Whopper. Wendy loyalists are going to butcher me on this call. But Wendy has her own set of burgers and fries and stuff like that. But you can buy that. So if you haven't looked into that, go to Wendyverse. It is phenomenal. Like the world that they've built, and you can actually have an avatar, play around with it, and all that. Gucci, right? So again, you look at merchandise. Again, Roblox has all these events where they'll start a fashion show. Right now, you can of course take the freebie stuff and run with that and see if you get ranked better. But you can now actually spend money and say, hey, you know what? I want Gucci shoes, Gucci shirt. I think LV, Louis Vuitton also has started looking into it. They have actually a game similar to the metaverse concept that you can play, and get that whole Louis Vuitton experience. So, point being, now you got merchandise companies as well, and then I was also looking at the financial services. So, Fidelity, happens to be one of your neighbors, Saber, right? Fidelity has a Fidelity Stack store, that you can actually, again, it's evolving, but they were not shy of making that announcement. I believe it was sometime last year that Fidelity is looking at chipping into metaverse as well. Um, Jim, I don't know. Does Saber have a metaverse? I could not find one, or maybe my research was weak when it came to Saber.
Yeah, no, if we do have a metaverse, it's hidden inside of another metaverse because I haven't heard of it. Uh, Yeah, maybe, but some of our customers may have, we have lots of airlines and travel
Yeah.
agencies that may have their own version. Uh, but yeah, if you do find one on your research, let me know, because then I can be surprised.
Yeah, I actually found a really nice article blog written by Saber India on, and that's my last slide, so I'll go into that as well. It was on metaverse and the future of tourism. So okay, now comes the kind of like, okay, why are we talking about, right? So everything that you see is still, security, governance, and privacy is big. We want to make sure that we are not getting conned, right? You want to protect yourself, especially your family, as kids are going to get on the metaverse. You want to coach them, hey, don't, just like back in the days, you didn't really know when first the chat came out. I was like, hey, wow, this is a great person on the other side. I trust them completely with my life. I'm not only going to give them all my personal details, but yeah, sure, I'll meet them in person because they are so nice, right? In chatting. Well, we all find out those not the smartest thing to do for those who did it. And please don't declare yourself on the call. So same thing with metaverse. A lot of security issues. Privacy is going to be a big concern because again, as we get more and more informed about why the data needs to be protected, then privacy on metaverse is also that gray area where, hey, what, because of the augmented reality, now more than how many times you're spending on a web page, how many times have you clicked, what was your first entry point. It's not just that data being captured, it's your brain waves, it's your physical movement, it's your eye movement, it's your reaction. All this goes into AI and machine learning, right? And if you think about it, how can you use that, how can you alter that experience? Yeah, I mean, yes, there are definitely opportunities there, but there are also a lot of risks. So, in to the point earlier, you do need to govern that, right? You do need to draw, hey, what are your guardrails? Like, what are the rules of engagement when you get on a metaverse? Because, that's still somebody's virtual identity who is a physical presence as well. Um, Again, I talked about cybersecurity. I'm not diving into this at a very granular level, but I thought of picking up the cloud governance framework since a lot of this, is going to sit on cloud. So if you look at any uh, framework, right? So again, it will look at what do you want to identify. So what are you protecting? What data are you protecting? What assets are you protecting? What is on those assets? So it's the whole data identification element that is going to be very important, right? Saying, hey, what does this mean, right? So when I'm going to say, hey, this cloud infrastructure needs to be protected, you do want to understand what is being protected, right? Who are your third parties? Who are your business associates? How are you sharing that data? Then comes the protection element of it, which is everything from identity access management to the infrastructure that is hosting, the environment that's giving you that experience, the data it collects while you're getting that experience. So as you enter the metaverse and when you exit the metaverse, we want to make sure that that whole experience, quote unquote, is encrypted and it sits on a platform that's protected as well. And this is where your security operations will come in. This is where your DevSecOps. So as you code and build new metaverse experience, right? We are going to see a whole evolution of different type of applications. When we didn't have smartphones and flip phones, nobody really thought about apps and, hey, what goes on the app, how are apps being installed, where does the data go from the apps. Same thing is going to happen on the metaverse. You're going to see an evolution of applications that will interface between the like the Oculus of the world, the and the platform itself, right? So you want to make sure that entire channel is protected. What do you do when you detect something malicious, right? How quickly are you going to catch it? Who is going to be alerted? And then more importantly, when do you respond and how you recover? So, use cases like, hey, if your identity got stolen, right? Um, I'm not thinking about myself, but think about when people start making a lot of money, right? So think about artists. What if somebody's identity got stolen on the virtual world? Well, fine, physically I'm not getting harmed, but hey, my metaverse avatar was making x millions of dollars a month. Now if that metaverse avatar is stolen or taken for ransom, I mean, it's affecting real dollars at some point, right? So you definitely want to think about that recovery aspect on how we are thinking about identity management, or sorry, stolen identity. Right now, you want to have the same principles applied to your virtual world. I'm thinking of identity theft. All right. So, security deepfake. Thank you for mentioning that earlier. That is definitely a concern. You want to make sure again, if as the metaverse evolves, right? Say you're in a campaign mode and stuff like that. Then the data is genuine. The data could be trustworthy. There's enough due diligence done by the company that's providing the data. All that comes in handy, right? So just like what you see in messaging nowadays, I mean, WhatsApp again is a great example. There's so many videos that for every now and then there's an event that happens in the world, and all of a sudden you'll see videos coming out, right? It's really hard to take all of them at the face level and say, wow, these are all genuine, right? We know enough now that there's a whole production unit out there, right? And it's not just one country; it's just everywhere, right? I mean, that's again an opportunity, for the bad guys to leverage that. There's a whole production group that will create these deepfake videos and put them out there. Cyber physical threats, and again, I'm going to go all around on this one. Um, Again, you're not on the metaverse. You do have your I know it's not called physical space but virtual space. So what if somebody takes that over, right? What if you're buying a house, right? A house in the virtual world. What if somebody, if you don't keep the tokens secure, what if somebody steals those tokens, and then boom, you just spent so much real money and now you just lost your house because you did not keep your tokens secure. Financial fraud, definitely. Dark wars, so just like dark web, there is actually a term called doxing, and I'll talk about that when we talk about privacy. But people are actually taking your data and going to sell it on a dark wars. It's just a version of dark web on the metaverse. So I could actually go. I've not ventured into dark wars. I'm just speculating what what that would look like. I can actually go and say, hey, if I wanted social security numbers, healthcare data, so that I could actually market to that crowd, I could actually go to dark wars and buy that information. Um, Again, moderation of speech, things like cyberbullying and all that is definitely an area of concern. Um so switching gears from cybersecurity to privacy, if none of you have taken a look at a privacy framework, again, very similar to the concept of identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. It's more about identify, govern, control, communicate, and then protect, detect, respond, recover, right? If you look at the AICPA General Accepted Privacy Principle Guidelines, again, the management of data is very important. We all are aware of choice and consent, right? So the Can Spam Act on email, you now as a consumer have the right to say, do not send me this email again, right? And the marketing companies will have to abide by that. If not, you can actually lawfully go after them and say, hey, I requested to unsubscribe from the email, why am I still getting those emails, right? um, Use of your data, retention of your data, and proper disposal of your data. So this is very important from a privacy lens, because if I'm going to a store and as they ask me for my email address, I consent. So I'm giving them my email address. They requested it. And then if I down the road say, hey, don't sell my email address, then they have to remove the email address as well. Um, Disclosure to third parties. This is where privacy really became a huge thing, because nobody likes the fact that somebody else is misusing my data, but more importantly also selling my data without my permission, and making money out of it as well, right? So now as a consumer, you have the power to understand, okay, if my data, if I'm creating my virtual avatar, if I'm buying all this virtual elements on the metaverse, who else is using my data? I need to know that. Where is it crossing geo boundaries, right? So if I'm a consumer in the US, is it going to a company in the UK? Is it going to a company in the Philippines? Now, am I getting targeted by them on metaverse, right? So I, as a smart consumer, definitely wants to understand that quality, notice, collection, access, and then of course the security side of it, right? So privacy is just evolving. I'll pause after this slide to give you some more sense of, hey, is this just a US thing? No, it's a global issue. So just just take 10 seconds to look at how many countries are actually thinking about privacy from a legal aspect point of view, right? Everyone from Argentina to the United States have strong regulations, definitely in the works, that are geared to protect, your information as a consumer, right? They all are in different, what do you call, spaces. So if you want to look at, hey, what's the most stringent out there, then GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation out of EU. This is how it all started. I would consider GDPR as the gold standard. Just like multiple cybersecurity frameworks, this privacy governance regulatory laws are all some version or the other of GDPR, right? So they all talk about the elements that we talked about: the consent management, the data request, the data retention, the data security, and the data governance of a consumer. Jim, I know I spoke a lot. Any
I,
thoughts from your end?
uh, there was uh, a question in the Q&A chat from Shabir. If you want to try and tackle this one, it's not necessarily on about this slide, but it's kind of what's your opinion on metaverse adaptability in terms of time horizon? Is it super adaptable in the near future, or is it more of a farther out future? Shabir says he's all he's heard so far is that it's far from being a prime time thing, and that reflects in Meta slash Facebook stock price, and that there was a company Matterport that had a VR application that was able to use it during COVID to give virtual real estate tours, but now that people can go into houses and look at them, that it's kind of come down a lot. So uh, yeah, we're seeing lots of news about metaverse, lots of experiments in metaverse.
Yeah.
Do you feel it coming mainstream sooner or later? What do you think?
And that's a great topic for discussion, right? It depends whom you ask. So I, like 2 years ago, I started my journey into the metaverse through that conference. I mean, the group of doctors is very passionate about augmented reality and metaverse. They actually use a lot for training
Hmm.
their doctors in Heidelberg. So as they onboard doctors, the first thing they are given is this Oculus package, and they all get trained and all that. So in some parts of different industries, it is going to be like you're, if it's not already being done, you're definitely going to see it. The broader commercialization, where hey, now everyone walks with a smartphone, right? To that level, yeah, it's definitely going to take some time, because
Hmm.
at first, like even when the smartphones came out, everyone was a little resistant, saying, hey, who else is listening on this device? I like my brick phone because it's so secure,
Hmm.
stuff like that. But now pretty much everyone, I do know one person who swears he's not going to use a smartphone, and he does not use a smartphone. use the Nokia 3310, I think. So it's so hard to work with him though. He's a great guy, but I'm like, dude, I can't send you an email.
Uh,
uh, no,
yeah, that
but that's a great thought, right? Go ahead, Jim.
no, I just
This is
yeah,
where again, if you look at things like, hey, why is this important, right? So the evolution of data collection is equals to data currency as well. Now my information is a lot more valuable, before the whole evolution of web 3.0, right? As I get involved in more 3.0 as a consumer, my body movements in metaverse, my brain waves, the decisions I'll make in the metaverse, right? Things I'll either go to, not go to, maybe pick an item and then just drop it in 2 seconds, or pick an item, take a look at it, move it around. So maybe spend 10 seconds versus 2 seconds. All those data points, I think, if we pair that up with machine learning and AI, are again going to take the whole 3.0 experience to a different level. But at the same time, that data currency is also a lot more valuable, right? Hey, did Mihir logs in at 9 o'clock every evening? So maybe if he spends 45 minutes, attending this concert. So hey, by next time that person is in town, Mihir is going to be a premium target because he's shown that behavior on Metaverse, right? So now some of that could be used and will be used to make decision in my day-to-day life, right? um, which again, look, from a consumer point of view, if I take my cybersecurity and privacy ad, it has definitely enhanced my experience. But I'm also a lot more risk adverse than before. I think 5 times before clicking on an unknown link, right? I'm like, it is always that one click that is going to be, your Achilles heel. So always think twice, think 3 times, 4 times. If it doesn't smell right, don't do it. uh, Misuse of data. So again, doxing was a new term. It's again collecting your, doxing for it's a version of docs, right? So all your documents, they collect it and they sell it. So again, there's a lot of that going on the dark wars, selling data without proper consent. So this is again, it's not always adversary behavior. A lot of times it's just like, hey, I have a lot of this data. If I sell it to a company, the company will benefit out of it and I get my money. So, but hey, you did not ask the consumer in a proper workflow format where, hey, are you okay to sell your data, or we will use your data for research and other marketing purposes? Do keep in mind, a lot of times they do that when we all accept the terms and conditions as we install new apps. So a lot of this language is hidden in their privacy policy, and probably everyone's seen that behavior. If you go to a new website now, they do give the cookie banner and say, hey, do you allow the cookies to track your behavior, right? So we as consumers have the power. And again, look, it's going to be that fine balance on, do you want that experience or you don't want that experience, right? But at the same time, I think from a thought process, the companies like Meta, Apple, like we talked about, they are here to enhance our experience, right? They're not here to maliciously design or do something with our data. So far it's all being done in good spirits, but at the same time, yes, there are bad guys out there who want to steal your data and stuff like that. This was interesting. Denial of service, like we have all seen that. I've actually lived, unfortunately, a couple of those moments where one machine started going down and boom, 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 everything else. This was back in the days when we only had antiviruses. But think of denial of service on your avatar, right? You cannot go to conferences. You start getting video call bombing. I'm like, wow, like you all of a sudden get pinged on Teams by 100 other rogue accounts, and you just cannot attend the most important call of your professional life or your virtual avatar. Coordinated harassments, right? So you don't get entry to events. People will not sell you stuff and stuff like that. So again, it's just if I know data and I have access to that, I can adversarially do a lot with that, right? Um, and then this is kind of, just to wrap it up, this is again best practice. Companies need to be more predictable about the data. They need to manage the data properly from day one. It's not where if you were involved in the evolution from DevOps to DevSecOps, like security was an afterthought, right? Like, because again, development, it's the speed, like, hey, from a thought leadership to a production, we want to get this out, go to market. That's our differentiator. We want to be the first one to capture the market share. We'll think about security later, right? Well, a lot of those companies did not have a great time when either they got breached or they violated a regulation or did not pass compliance and so on, right? So shifting security left and say, hey, DevSecOps security needs to be part of that development lifecycle. Same rules will apply here as companies, venture into metaverse, as they create the platforms, as they create the infrastructure. Thinking about security and privacy initially is just going to help them gain that trust. There's a lot, I've heard this so many times in the last few months. The new economy is trust, right? If you break the trust of a consumer, then most likely you're not going to see that consumer come back again, unless you're the only one in the marketplace, which is pretty rare. So keep in mind, how do you want to gain trust? You want to gain trust by more being more transparent, right? Helping them understand how your data is governed, manage their data, and disclose things where applicable. And just last slide, because you're Saber, you're in tourism. So Jim, this was a blog that was written by a person in Saber. I'm going to give you his name. Give me 1 second. Sanjeev Patel. So
right.
he wrote the blog on Saber India, which is pretty fascinating. I edit some, but destination window shopping, right? So again, think of as I'm buying a ticket, or I'm surfing a.com and I'm looking for flight tickets to Orlando, right, in Disney in December. Then having that feature over there saying, hey, do you want to experience that? Oh, I have my Oculus glasses. Why not, right? You wear them, boom, you're right in the middle of a Disney parade in Christmas where the decor is there. And if I show it to my kid right there, and she's going to be like, let's book it, right? And you get this deal done right there, right? You don't, because once you lose, you never know when the user comes back. So enhancing that window shopping, historical travel, you saw the King Tut immersive experience, right? I think that's just the starting. So to your question earlier, Shabir, I am definitely going to make a point to go to those immersive experiences next time whenever they come in Dallas or I get an opportunity, because I have a feeling that once I do one, especially like, hey, do you want to hang out with the Beatles, right? What if that became an immersive experience? I'm like, definitely, man. Backstage with the Beatles and stuff like that, and be on the concert stage, just different experience. Um, Bucket list airlines, metaverse tourism. So just go, and somebody, was it Snoop Dogg's house? Somebody's paid ridiculous amount of money to buy a virtual villa next to Snoop Dogg on the metaverse. And like, people actually paid, it was few hundred K, and this is real money, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to pay that amount, but just like VRBO, maybe I'll just rent it out, right? So, but again, this is all virtual experience. You're not physically going to Snoop Dogg's house, but you're like, hey, I'm going to pay whatever, $15 to have a 15-minute virtual tour, right? Space travel, something I was thinking with, the Blue Origins or the SpaceX, uh, when the rocket launches, so you're mixing the live event with the virtual event. What if you get to experience the rocket launch at the same time that is happening, and you see the space? And look, I mean, I'm not going to have 250 grand to spend and have a seat, but this may be good enough for me, right? The last thing I was like, hey, what is Super Bowl 25? So if this happens, everyone gets to buy me a beer. Um, you get a Super Bowl ticket, not to go sit in the stadium, but with the ticket, you'll get an Oculus package where you get to watch the entire game through the eyes of a quarterback or a coach or a running back in Super Bowl 25. So there you go. If nobody's done that, if you have any connections with NFL, call me after this. We'll get this done. All right, and that's my virtual avatar. So kind of now I built it up on the iPhone before. I always wanted to grow the handlebars, Jim. I've
Yep.
tried
Yep.
so many times growing a mustache, but then either the wife complains or I don't have too much patience to keep it for a long time.
I need a lot of patience to grow a mustache like that. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So if you have questions, the Q&A chat's open. You can also put, if you don't know where that is, you can just put questions into the regular chat. And I, you also have some questions that I ask. There's one that I ask all the presenters. It's not on technology. The question is, if you could go back in time and talk to 18 or 20-year-old Mihir, talk to yourself and give yourself some career guidance. So experienced you could go back in time and talk to younger you. What type of advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that's a very timely question, Jim. I think one, definitely get yourself involved in a startup early in your career, because the startup will, and I just came from a startup, right? The startup will teach you a lot. Like it will help you appreciate a lot. So I was with Xavier Consulting before joining PwC. I
Hmm.
learned so much. I created a lot of relationships. I took, the concept of ownership was there before. It
Hmm.
wasn't where I was irresponsible, but the concept of ownership took a different definition for me. So the younger me here, I really wish, somebody would have said, hey, don't worry about it. Don't always have a safety net. Go to a startup, right? Like, again, the harder you fall, the harder you get up, stuff like that. So I would have given that advice to myself.
Hmm.
I told myself, I was like, hey, forget all. I mean, do your studies, get a degree, but you're doing a startup. I'm going to
Yep.
fund it. I don't care what happens with it, but think of an idea. I'm going to fund the idea.
Did you find one of the things being at a startup that you end up having to do a lot of different things, like wear multiple hats that you
Mhm.
didn't have to do in previous environments?
Yeah, and some of that is also personality based. So I do understand why not everyone does a startup. But in the startup world, you do wear, so everything from business development to a sales hat to a marketing hat to a delivery hat to a subject matter expert help hat. So there are multiple hats that you have to play, and you'll figure out like some hats suit you well, some hats really don't work with you, but you
Hmm.
still have to wear them and call it a day. And yeah, you just leave it at that.
All right. All right. Looking at the chats, if you have anything, go ahead and post your question. Uh, so you did uh, uh, talk about that you presented at or were part of a German medical
XR,
conference.
yeah,
Yeah,
Shift Medical.
yeah, Shift Medical conference. Is that and it sounds like you've done it for uh, uh, a couple of years. Are there other types of conferences like that you go to for AR VR type stuff, or um, and if you don't go to them, do you know more about them? Just curious the depth of uh, the conferences that you're going to, and I guess they don't have to be AR VR, but other great conferences that you like to attend or speak at.
Yeah, I go to, so transparently, because AR VR is such a like it's a vertical, right? You want to be focused into that. You want to play a part into that. So there are a lot of AR VR conferences happening. Like Mumbai is a big hub for that. China is a big hub into
Hmm.
that. And again, EU is not catching up, but also playing its part. I think US, the whole Silicon Valley is Meta is now not just building a company but evolving from that. I don't go to every AR VR. I think if I for me to go, I would really need to shift my career from cybersecurity
Hmm.
to go
Hmm.
into product technology, because there's just cybersecurity privacy, while it's important, it is one part of the puzzle, one piece
Hmm.
of the puzzle, right? There's just so much that could be done with that from a market point of view. I would love to at some point down the road have an opportunity in that, but most of the conferences I go to are still focused around privacy and governance, because it's a topic that I know inside out. I can
Hmm.
contribute to that. It's still important, right? Like understanding where your data is, where it's going, contribute to company strategy, and so on. So yeah, those are my conferences.
All right. Well, thanks for that. And yeah, just some things in the chat. No more questions. So we'll probably leave the questions at that. But just a few statements, from Akil and Gaurav. Thanks for the great content, great session. Gaurav hopes that his avatar can make more money in the metaverse than in the real world. There's there's always that. And yeah, Mihir, thanks for taking your time with us today. The preparation, the time out of your day. Uh, yeah, really appreciate it. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. This is, again, it's a fun topic, makes it exciting, and hopefully I was able to shed some more light. And look, remember, if Super Bowl 25 happens where you are getting VR sets from NFL, I'm gonna get a list from Jim, and I'm gonna declare this. Everyone gets to buy me a beer. We'll make this in-person event and then watch the Super Bowl from somewhere.
Well, it
I'm just
sounds like a
kidding.
plan.
Yeah.